Ladies and gentlemen, does it get any better than this? Does it get any better than this? This is amazing. Chayla, are you here? Chayla's here. Chodesh Tov, everybody. I just want you to know this is Chayla's 25th year hosting this fundraiser. 25 years. And it's not simply hosting. She really is the engine and the ambassador for NCSY, and she generates tremendous amount of support and enthusiasm, and it's difficult to imagine where we would be without Chayla Levitz, and we thank her. We really don't have the words. All we could do is say, look at this list, Chayla, of 25 years of yeshiva alumni from this city. It's absolutely, absolutely amazing, and that is better than any words that we can tell you. As you know, this is the briefest program of any fundraising event you ever attend, and we're going to keep to that. Thank you, Rabbi Burnham. And I'd like to begin by just a tradition that we have in our region. Meyer and Bessie Eisenberg had to be great because they have a perfect score. Their 3 children are all leaders in their communities and leaders of Jewish education, and they have the wisdom to choose to memorialize their parents by a scholarship for NCSY. And I'd like to call upon this year's recipient of the Meyer and Bessie Scholarship, a very special young man from Oak Park, Michigan, Frankel Jewish Academy, Yoni Barish. Yoni is going on his 2nd summer with Camp Sports, NCSY. And as lovely as this event is, it will never be the same without Noah Ezra Carmen, a model Jew, someone who was a true role model and an inspiration, and someone kind and giving, and someone you could always rely on for friendship, help, and a good smile. And his family have chosen to commemorate his memory with a scholarship, and this year's recipient chosen by Stacy Carmen is not here this evening, but is Yossi Nadel. And we should really have a special diploma for the Nadels who are graduating their 4th special guy from our community and from NCSY and from B'nai Akiva and from all the great things that they're involved with. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome some new people to our organization. As you know, NCSY is the division of the Orthodox Union, the OU. I don't know if you know this, but all the profits from OU Kashrus all goes into supporting NCSY. So every dollar you give is not going for buildings and it's not going for salaries. Every dollar you give is going for buses and pizza and programs and scholarships. And we now have a director of our region for the Orthodox Union is Rabbi Phil Karish, who's enjoying his dinner with Rabbi and Mrs. Morris. And welcome to our region. Thank you for being here. One of the greatest things about NCSY is the great people we work with, and we have a new member of our team, Associate Chapter Director Jason and Jacqueline Cohen. Those of you that have kids in NCSY know that he is very, very beloved. And you certainly know Rabbi David Lichtig, who has become an essential part of our community. And I'd like to ask him to introduce our next speaker.
So as Sally mentioned, this is going to be a very brief program, so don't worry. We moved to Detroit about 8 years ago now. 8 years is a significant amount of time. But even so, after all these years, it still never fails to amaze me the amazing things that our teenagers are able to accomplish and the amazing things that they are able to achieve. And that's really what keeps us going. So it's really my honor and my pleasure to introduce to you here 2 NCSYs to share some words with you. In Pirkei Avos we say, one of the writers of Pirkei Avos says that he learned a lot of things throughout his life. But from his students, he learned the most. And that's definitely true here in Detroit NCSY. And I would like to introduce to you again two NCSYers. We're going to start off with a very short Dvar Torah from a NCSYer who went on the NCSY Summer Kollel in a very unusual twist of events after 9th grade. It's usually reserved for the upper grades. And in an even more unusual twist of events, it's going again in this summer after 10th grade. He's going to be leaving us and going to yeshiva full-time in New York next year, and it's really an honor to ask Yoni Ben Ezra to share some brief words of Torah with us. This will be followed directly by some words from Molly Yabra, a teenager at previously from the Franco-Jewish Academy. She lives in Huntington Woods. I'm going to allow her to share her story with you. Now, without further ado, please give your attention to Yoni Ben Ezra.
Thank you, Rabbi Lichtig. Okay, so last week we read in the Torah about the lone Jew who violated Shabbat on the second Shabbat after receiving the Ten Commandments at Mount Sinai. There are two glaring questions one can understand after reading this. Why is it only mentioned now, a year later, when the episode of the spies already happened? And the second question is, why does Rashi state that this reflects poorly on all of Bnei Israel? A lone Jew violates Shabbat and all of Klal Israel is to be blamed? Perhaps the answer might be that all Jewish people had the wrong attitude. A Jew must never say, "This Jew is not my problem." As the Talmud states in Masechet Shavuot 39, Kol Yisrael Aravim Ze Lazeh, all Jews are responsible for one another. That guy's problem is everyone's problem. Furthermore, they should have learned a very important lesson. Just after Har Sinai, when the entire Jewish nation had experienced divine revelation, every single Jew was like a prophet. They were on a spiritual high. Even then, the inspiration can wear off fast, and a person can violate Shabbat. No matter how high we are, we should never feel secure. We are always vulnerable, and we must always take action to ensure that we stay on track. Perhaps this is why immediately after the Torah introduces the mitzvah of tzitzit, they stand as a constant reminder of all 613 mitzvot, and the blue string reminds us of heaven and God's throne. When soon after Mount Sinai, already one Jew strayed, we should have understood that as a red flag. We should not have dismissed it as someone else's problem, and we should have realized that we need to take action to maintain our inspiration. And since we didn't, soon the entire nation had a loss of faith, which resulted in the tragic rebellion of the spies. And NCSY, we are not just taught to take action. We are not just taught, but we take action to take responsibility for every Jew, and that we never take our responsibility for granted, our spirituality for granted, and must always be growing. As we say in our regional board theme song, growing together, learning how to choose, Kedator region, proud that we are Jews. Thank you.
In 10th grade, I ran into Rabbi Lichtig in the hallway at school, and he told me and my best friend that we should come on this week-long trip to New York with NCSY. He said it would be a week of sightseeing, shopping, Broadway shows, and there would be people there from all over the world. Once I began to realize the absurdity of the situation, traveling by bus across the country with this person that I'd never met before and a youth group I'd never heard of, he had already called my mom, finalized everything, and she texted me that I was signed up. That's when I found out that my friend couldn't come, but it was too late to back out. I got on the bus alone with the other 7 kids coming from Detroit, and it was one of the strangest, most uncomfortable situations of my life. When we finally got to the hotel, I was given a book of Tehillim and was told to go into this big room for a class. At this point, the trip was already so far from what I had anticipated, so I just kind of went with it. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was raised in a home where I was taught a lot about my religion at Sunday school, but we didn't really do any of it. I was a typical public school kid. We had Shabbat dinners every once in a while and did not eat pepperoni on our pizza or bread on Passover. But when I was in middle school, my parents started to become more observant and really embraced Judaism. I did everything in my power to push it away. When I was on Yarchei Kala, I was just kind of done with it all. But in just a few days, everything changed. For the first time in my life, I wanted to feel connected. I kept Shabbos that week just to try it out, and I told myself that one day, sometime far along the line, I'd be Shomer Shabbos. That day came just months later, on my 10th grade spring regionals, and I've kept Shabbos ever since. I continued to learn, grow, and be inspired with every Shabbatoner event, and I was lucky enough to attend 2 summer programs and 3 Yarchei Kalas. And both TJJ and TJJ ambassadors, I fell in love with Israel. Just after realizing my love for Judaism and beginning to really embrace it, I was able to travel the country, creating relationships with incredible people and gaining the confidence necessary to become the Jew that I wanted to be. Judaism began to make so much sense, but that's when I really started struggling with it. I felt this love and happiness that was impossible to explain, and I dove in head first. I completely changed my life, and I knew that what I was doing was right, but when I was questioned about it, I didn't know what to say. What I felt was indescribable, and I barely understood it myself. I struggled to take responsibility for my actions, and I only felt like I could be myself when I was with NCSY. Though I had so much support from this group, I felt as though my growth was still being stifled, and that ultimately led me to switch schools for my senior year. I transferred to Farber Hebrew Day School this year to be surrounded by Torah. It was the scariest thing I've ever done, but I'm so thankful that I did it. I gained a more solid foundation in Gemara and Chumash and even got to do an extra hour of independent Torah study for my second semester. As I gained much more knowledge in school, I became more confident learning on my own and began learning Musar and Kabbalah with some younger students at JSP and recently made a siyum on Derech Hashem. Though I was now in an environment where I could learn and grow freely all the time, I was still inspired most by NCSY. I didn't truly realize how much of a family this is for me until recently. From learning with Rabbi Jason Cohen and Rabbi Lichtig, to Pesach Seders with my parents in the Lichtigs, and our last few minutes the girls spent hugging each other with tears streaming down our faces on stage before we passed the torch to the next year of regional board. This is the family that has been there for me through it all. Because of the incredible rabbis, advisors, and teens I've had the privilege to know through NCSY, the way that I see Judaism has forever been changed. This isn't just a bunch of laws to follow. It's a recipe for success, and I now live a life of meaning because of it. In a couple of months, I will be returning to Israel to continue to learn and grow at Tiferet in Ramat Beit Shemesh. In the following year, I will be in the honors program at Yeshiva University. I owe a tremendous amount of gratitude to my parents, who have always ensured that I have a connection to Judaism no matter what it may be. I would also like to thank Rabbi Sally Friedman for teaching me what true leadership is. Thank you to Rabbi Jason Cohen for joining us this year and working so hard to ensure that as many people are affected by this incredible organization as possible. Lastly, thank you to Rabbi Lichtig for convincing me to go on Yarchei Kala and for playing such an influential role in my life ever since. I would genuinely like to thank each and every one of you for being here today and showing support for such an incredible organization. NCSY, along with Aish and Partners in Torah, have had a tremendous impact on my family, and your support has made NCSY accessible to me and countless others. It is because of you that eyes are opened to the beauty of Judaism and teens are making lifelong commitments to this way of life. This organization has been my backbone for the past 3 years and has taught me pride, perseverance, and so much more. After every Shabbaton, I've tried to take up something new, something to perpetuate my growth. So now I'm taking on the biggest thing of all, to use the challenges that I've faced to give strength to others to grow to appreciate Judaism and all it has to offer. To show people that Hashem is always listening and has a plan even if we have no clue what it may be. That even when your prayers are answered in the most roundabout ways, they're still being answered. I never would have guessed on that bus to New York, but now I know that NCSY was my answer. Thank you.
Wow, Molly and Yoni, that's amazing. Now we know what Rabbi Lichtig was referring to. Every month, in the office, we receive a very, very generous check. And in the memo of that check, it says, Sally Friedman Retirement Fund. And I'm not sure if that guy loves me or he's trying to get rid of me. That check comes from Ariella and Mikey Scotchless, who have been incredible friends for the last 20 years. And just in a couple days, they are going to be making Aliyah. So They really personify everything that NCSY is all about. Because the two things we're famous for is shidduchim and aliyah. Shidduchim, now this is not an Akiva shidduch, because Mikey graduated high school in 202, and Ariella entered high school in 202. It's all legal. But this is an NCSY shidduch. And in a couple weeks, not in a couple weeks, in a couple days, there's going to be 1,600 kids from around the country going on NCSY summer programs. And a couple of weeks later, there are going to be 400 more kids going for the year for a gap year in Israel. And that's why, according to Nefesh B'Nefesh statistics, NCSY is the #1 common denominator for Aliyah. So right here, personifying all of that is what NCSY is all about, is this lovely, lovely young couple. And if you knew them in high school, there's no surprise, because in the younger years in high school, you saw their intelligence, you saw their passion, you saw their ambition, you saw their idealism, you saw their sacrifice, you saw their level of responsibility and their sense of Klal Yisrael in high school. And it has only blossomed and grown since then. And they are a very, very remarkable couple. And we are very, very proud, sad, but very proud and delighted. And it's a moving time. It's not easy. It's not easy to say goodbye. And NCSY, we never say goodbye. We always say, see you later. But I'm particularly concerned because my retirement fund is not really funded. So I wanted to give them something that would make sure that they would never forget us. Never forget us. So I got a mezuzah, and I didn't just get a mezuzah, I got a really, it's a front door mezuzah. So every time you walk through the front door, you're going to have to think about a little bit about NCSY. And I'd just like to call you up to present this to you, and we'll maybe even take a picture.
I was warned that I might have to say a few words. And it's because I like you that I fund that retirement fund, and I encourage all you guys to send in monthly checks for the same thing. And put it in the memo so Eva doesn't call you every month and ask you what it's for. So for the second time in as many weeks, I'm standing at a podium speaking at a fundraiser for Jewish education. So Gary, if Tony Blair has visa issues, you can give me a call. Early on in my life, I realized that in order for Judaism to survive, Jewish education had to be a priority, whether that's formal, informal, or in every Jewish home. However, what I have learned since then is that having only one of that trio really leaves much to be desired. We need all three to create positive, thoughtful, dedicated, and impactful Jews. We need strongly supported Jewish day schools and yeshivot. We need strong Jewish homes led by committed parents, and we need a strong NCSY. NCSY was indispensable in my own and Ariella's personal development. While we had tremendous homes, got excellent Jewish and secular educations at Akiva, these ideals were best reinforced and expanded upon in our NCSY experiences. From junior NCSY to chapter board presidents and regional board presidents, both of us, and the tremendous summer programs, our Judaism became inspired, steeped in Torah, as well in communal responsibility and leadership. These were all indispensable experiences that formed our Jewish commitment. As a teen and as an advisor, I have seen this happen literally hundreds of times. There's a magic to the NCSY experience. The magic happens because of the hard work of leaders and mentors like Tali Friedman, David Lichtig, Chaim Yehuda Kleinberg, Steve Berg, Rhonda Spector, the list goes on, along with the trained advisors who know exactly how to inspire Jewish teens, always pushing the right buttons, saying the right things, and believing in the immense potential of every kid. I know that these people believed in me when I needed it most, and that is part of the reason I am who I am, and I am where I am today. Your children, our children, need NCSY, and more importantly, the Detroit community needs it. I am not here asking so my children can benefit from the tremendous work Detroit NCSY does, but I truly believe that the Detroit Jewish community needs NCSY. So I beg each parent here to make sure your kids aren't just involved, but are fully engaged on a consistent basis, so all of us can be proud of how strong and dedicated our Jewish community is. I implore each person here to ensure that Detroit NCSY is well funded, monthly checks help, with dollars and enthusiastic support, like the Miodowniks are modeling today, and that Chaya Levitz has for over 25 years. So the Detroit NCSY can continue to fulfill its vital mission of making Detroit teens the future of the Jewish people. Thank you, guys.
A bunch of years ago, I'm forever grateful to Mr. Gary Torgo because a bunch of years ago he had the insane idea of yanking me from a different planet and putting me into the universe of NCSY. And I'm forever grateful for that. And I just want to tell you some things about Gary that I have a reason why I want to tell you this to you. He is a very, very unusual guy. I don't know anybody like him. In 3 arenas, he is a leader's leader. When he goes to conventions of in business or in government or in communal things from every side of the spectrum, leaders are lined up to talk to him. He's a leader's leader. And on top of that, he married really, really well. And he was never home, so somebody raised the children really, really well. But the reason why I tell you this is because there's I think there's a poster that talks about everything you needed in life you learned in kindergarten. Well, everything he learned about leadership, he learned in NCSY. Because he was an NCSYer, and he was a regional director in NCSY. So everything he learned, I think maybe there's some hope for me too, one day. Without further ado, Mr. Gary Torgo.
I did Sally the biggest favor. I got him out of Lakewood, New Jersey. Who would like to live there? First, I was here 25 years ago at the very first Levitz event, and it gets bigger and bigger every year. We're taught in Gemara Maseches Shabbos that the Amora Rabbah began each Torah class with a milsa bidechusa, a bit of humor. I'm not sure what jokes he told in those days, but I can assure you that it's not the one I'm about to tell you. My joke is tailor-made for Lonnie and Yoni, and it goes like this. A pregnant woman from Washington, D.C. falls into a deep sleep. When she wakes up, she sees that she's no longer pregnant, and she frantically asks the doctor about her baby. The doctor replies, "Great news. You had twins. A boy and a girl, and your uncle from Michigan came in and named them." The woman thinks to herself, "Oy vey, my uncle gave my kids their names?" You see, Lonnie, I'm sure not everyone trusts their uncles like you trust me. Anyway, she asks the doctor, "Well, what did my uncle call my daughter?" And he says, "Denise." She says, "Well, that's not a bad name. I like it." "What's the boy's name?" "De nephew." Denise, the nephew, you got that? Okay, good. That was definitely not his joke in the Gemara. I can tell you one thing, his joke was really old. Thank you to our host, Chayla, for always making your home a house filled with beautiful mitzvahs and a true base vad of Torah and good deeds. Steve Levitz of blessed memory constructed and built with you this home with that goal uppermost in his mind, and we miss him tremendously. And we love and appreciate you, Chayla, so much. Lonnie and Yoni, you cannot imagine how gratified we are to see what you have both become and the beautiful family that you are raising. Yoni, you are such a wonderful and impressive young man. You're so modest and accomplished, and how proud we are of you and how Elana succeeds so beautifully because of your loving and devoted partnership. I would venture to say that everybody here this evening is personally familiar with someone in our community whose commitment to Yiddishkeit began or was enhanced by NCSY through their wonderful contact with people like Lonnie and Yoni Miodownik. NCSY has been in our area for almost 50 years, and under the leadership of Rabbi Sally Friedman for the last 25, NCSY has stabilized, grown, and succeeded incredibly to become an essential resource and an invaluable asset for the perpetuation of Torah in our community. The magic of NCSY and the miraculous transformation which it has engendered stems from the passion NCSY ignites in kids at every Jewish level, from the public school kids with no prior Shabbos experience to the day school kids who gain a tremendous amount of inspiration from the full NCSY experience. That's where Lonnie comes in. With her professional counseling skills, with her unique perspective born of a solid Jewish education and a terrific family background, balanced with her experience as an amazing wife and mother, all of which is encouraged and supported by her husband Yoni, which is a reflection of his own commitment. As our NCSY Region's advisor, maximizer, as a volunteer kid by kid, Elana connects each one of her charges to an advisor. She is recruited and trained and inspired and encouraged to nurture that flame. And impelled by her own devotion and desire, she follows through always and endlessly, often raising scholarship money to make it possible for her kids, the NCSYers, to take the next essential step. In this week's Sedra Korach, the Torah almost surprisingly informs us that Ubnei Korach lo mesu. Although everyone around Korach and all of his followers were swallowed up by the earth, the children of Korach avoided that terrible and tragic end. That despite the deficiencies in their home experience, despite exposure to parental rejection of God's word, somehow, almost certainly by the efforts of their community of Klal Yisrael and the inspiration of Moshe and their leaders, somehow they were inspired to choose a different path, the right path, the Torah path, and ultimately raised a next generation that turned out to be true to Torah's Moshe. We say, Uri bonim levanecha, shalom al Yisroel, that when you see children to your own children, Klal Yisrael will experience peace. Effectively and remarkably, what Chazal are telling us there is that when you see the children of others as your responsibility and they become like your own children, then Shalom al Yisroel, Klal Yisrael will enjoy a great peace and harmony. When we view our obligations not just to our own children, but to the children of Hashem, who otherwise might be lost or need a helping hand or some special assistance, and by our support who empower people like Sally Friedman and Lonnie and so many others engaged in this wonderful endeavor, we will surely help bring the peace and the geula that we long for Klal Yisrael in 2018. So by being here tonight, by reaching into our pockets to participate, we have all become partners in the inspiration and the passion by which NCSY works to help secure the future of the Jewish people. We should all be thrilled to be part of such a wonderful enterprise, NCSY. Elana and Yoni, as you accept this for your wonderful efforts on behalf of NCSY's kids, as you both give of your time and your resources and your personal sacrifice, you are providing a wonderful example for your peers and all those who have been touched by the NCSY experience. Giving back to that which we have been given is one of the essential traits consistently underscored by our rabbis and teachers, and it is most appropriate that this award is named after our dear and special friend, Steve Levitz, Olav Shalom, who epitomized the traits of giving unselfishly for so many around him. Yoni and Lonnie, please come forward to accept a small token of NCSY's gratitude for all you do, and Mazel Tov.
Thank you for the recognition. Yoni and I certainly do not feel deserving of this honor, but Sally told me that he would not take no for an answer, so here we are. Since we had to accept it, we're comforted in the fact that this event is being hosted by our dear friend Chayla, so thank you, Chayla, for hosting. I want to explain why a full-time working mother schleps her busy husband and family to Shabbatons and volunteers to be the advisor maximizer. I'll be honest, I wasn't always as committed to NCSY as I am today. But I did go on a number of Shabbatons and a summer of learning on NCSY Mechlalet, which had a profound impact on me. But in hindsight, I regret not being as diehard as I should have been. As an adult, I have a greater understanding as to how I would have been better off if I went on a consistent basis, because the more you're in it, the more you gain. Sally will tell you that I ditched them in 10th grade. But what's important is that I chose to come back with a stronger devotion and a deeper commitment when I was added to what we call the A-team of advisors. I was fresh back from my year in Israel, and Mikey Scotchless was the head advisor at the time. I wasn't sure at first, but as many of us know, Mikey is very persuasive. I went to my first Shabbaton as an advisor a bit skeptical and uncomfortable. Did NCSY really make the difference? Would I make a difference? I remember it so clearly. Before Friday night dinner on the Shabbaton, there's always an advisor powwow. Then advisors scatter around the room to find themselves a seat. But the rule is no clumping. No advisors can be sitting too close to one another because we're there for the kids, not to hang out with each other. So anyway, it's Friday night, and I'm getting to my seat, and Mikey comes over to me to tell me about this girl from Pittsburgh. She's in 9th grade at Alderdice, which is a public school in Pittsburgh. Mikey gave me a whole story that essentially conveyed to me the message that my life depended on helping this girl connect to Judaism. Now, Lindsay wasn't just a regular teen. She was a really cool teen. And who am I? I'm this reserved frummy, fresh back from seminary. I told Mikey that there's no chance that this cool girl will give me the time of day. But amazing things happen in NCSY. Amazing connections and relationships are built on the foundation of a mutual love for growth, inspiration, and personal reflection. And somehow, with persistence and a little bit of going out of our comfort zones, Lindsay and I hit it off. While on the outside she was this too cool public school student, she was also deeply rooted in a drive for more. From building a relationship that started on a Shabbaton in the fall of 2005, that continued on to weekly Torah by phone conversations, that has continued to go until today. Lindsay is my family. We share in each other's milestones, we share in each other's struggles, we share in each other's growth in Judaism, life, and even parenting, as Lindsay welcomed her daughter to our family this past October. Lindsay came in for our wedding. I was able to see Lindsay go off to seminary. Yoni and I attended Lindsay's wedding to her husband, Chaim, who, of course, she met in NCSY. We proudly get to watch Lindsay stand beside Chaim, who is now the chapter director of Pittsburgh NCSY. All because Lindsay was inspired, Lindsay connected, and Lindsay grew. These past 13 years since my sophomore year in college, I've seen this happen countless times with teens from every background. The teen years are a critical time of tremendous vulnerability and, conversely, of potential. It's almost the make or break period of life. NCSY is tested and proven to be one of the best institutions that makes the difference in what might be the most critical time for spiritual development. I would like to leave you with one final thought on the idea of seeing is believing. In this past week's Parsha, the spies go out to see the land of Israel. It wasn't enough to hear about it, they were insistent on seeing it firsthand. Similarly, at the end of the Parsha, the mitzvah of tzitzis is discussed. The Torah says in the text, "V'haya lachem letzitzit, uritem oto zchartem et kol mitzvos Hashem, v'asitem otam." This shall be the tzitzis for you, and when you see it, you will remember all of the commandments of Hashem to perform them. Part of the mitzvah of wearing tzitzis is that they need to be seen. Someone recently asked me, what is it about NCSY? What makes NCSY stand out? My response was the following: energy. On Shabbos afternoons, as the Shabbos is winding down and coming to a close, ebbing happens. You walk into a room that has circles within circles within circles of 250 plus teens and their advisors, some who didn't even have a bar or bat mitzvah, linked arm in arm with teens from very religious backgrounds, inspiring each other in the ultimate win-win, singing away the Shabbos in an unusual harmony. It is simply indescribable. There's an energy in the room, an energy that is so powerful, so strong, that even our 6-year-old and 3-year-old children feel the magnetic pull that they need to be in the room instead of running around in the hallway. It's hard to adequately describe in words, but something I encourage everyone to witness and experience, our own personal tzitzis experience. I apologize to Tzali in advance for overstepping his role as regional director and inviting you all, but I encourage each of you to take the opportunity to experience this energy on a local or even distant Shabbaton so that you too will understand why a full-time working mom schleps her busy husband and 2 children away for Shabbos to continue investing our time in making this wonderful experience for our teens. Yoni and I would like to thank each and every one of you for joining us in support of this indispensable organization. Thank you.